you. Today is Monday, January 12th, 2026. My name is Francisco Gaffney, and this is my daily streaming all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. So, when a PLC announces a refinancing, everyone looks at the same things: new money, debt conversion, dilution, rating path. All of these very important. But board failure rarely happens on the term sheets. It happens the week after the press release when the business has to operate inside the new promises. So this week, I'm going to separate two concepts, or particularly today, that boards often bundle together. One is capital structure, and the other one is operating reality. But the whole week, I'm going to talk about the same PLC that I'm watching on the London Stock Exchange that is going through this process. So, as an advisor or a board advisor, what observations I take out of the documents that they are producing. So, in terms of capital structure and operating reality, let's take a look at three problems that I already identified. So, number one, in this PLC that I'm observing, the plan requires a near-term liquidity and a very large debt-to-equity conversion, which will heavily dilute existing shareholders. And dilution can stabilize the balance sheet, but it does not stabilize the cash conversion. So the Financial Reporting Council going concern guidance is explicit that directors should consider solvency and liquidity risk and explain material uncertainties where relevant. Problem number two is that management is targeting a return to a low double-digit operating margin and free cash flow of around 900 million pounds. And this is by 2027, so it's next year, while also aiming to improve the credit profile and make a declaration of their effectiveness. If the operation or the operating model is fragile, control effectiveness becomes harder to evidence. And evidence, remember, is the best defensible position after any audit or notices or reporting requests, etc., etc. Anyway, so problem number three that I found is working capital has been primarily a destabilizer. The group saw a very large working capital headwind in the prior year, that's 2024, and management is now treating working capital stability as a core turnaround lever. This sits in a wider UK reality where productivity remains weak. The UK Office for National Statistics reports that output per hour in Q2 2025 was only 1.5% above 2019 levels. So alongside underlying weakness in productivity growth, so the effort does not scale cleanly without a system change. So, in other words, refinancing without fixing the model is like resetting the smoke alarm battery while the wiring is still overheating. So here's the nuances boards need to hold on to. Now, this PLC is not only refinancing, it's also trying to change its shape, which is quite interesting. It has two large operating worlds: a higher value digital and security world with a deep IP, intellectual property, and a legacy infrastructure world with low margins and high system drag. So it was in these venture talks, those talks ended, and now it's pushing to a one group. So merging these two worlds and an integration plan. So the pivot is the real board story here, I think, because integration is not a slogan, it's a working capital and trust program. So if you integrate poorly, you break delivery. And if you break delivery, you trigger disputes. And if you trigger disputes, you slow down billing. And if you slow down billing, working capital worsens and your refinancing runaway shortens. So, as an advisor or board advisor, what I would propose to consider in this case: number one, tie the refinancing to operational proof, not activity, right? Ask for 3 measurable milestones that demonstrate the operating model is hardening, such as improvements in the billing cycle, reductions in disputes, and standardization of delivery. And the UK Finance Reporting Council going concern guidance pushes boards towards clearer disclosure of solvency and liquidity risk. That only gets easier if operating proof exists. Suggestion number 2 is that treat the one group as a control program. Integration should be expressed as control design: who owns delivery gates, who gets standardized, and what becomes repeatable. And repeatability is also very interesting. We're going to cover that in following sessions this week. The 2024 UK Corporate Governance Code expects boards to monitor and review material controls and declare on effectiveness. So integration without control evidence is where credibility erodes. Suggestion number 3, rebuild the business model asset, not only the finance asset. Using the asset lens, the quickest path out of labor intensity is aggressive productization, or productizing the IP and automation of legacy operations into a repeatable system asset. In the UK environment, where the productivity remains weak, as we saw earlier, or based on the national statistics, the system leverage makes margin target plausible. So this is where the board conversations often drift. They say, or they stay in the capital language, but they miss the business model language. So here's the practical framing I use. If the recovery depends mainly on heroic execution by thousands of people, it is fragile. But if recovery depends on codified products, standard operating procedures, and controls you can evidence, it's scalable. So this PLC that I'm studying, their turnaround is compelling because it has all the raw ingredients. They have the brand trust in mission critical environments. They have deep IP in security and high performance computing, and they have an ecosystem positioning with public sector relationships. So the risk is that legacy system drag and labor heavy delivery eat the oxygen before products and systems assets can compound. So how we can approach this? So it's 3 things I will look into. Number 1 is outcomes, number 2 is differentiators, and number 3 is how you reduce the risk. Number 1, outcomes. So the board can use the UK reporting expectation as a forcing function. So the UK Financial Reporting Council 2025 going concern guidance brings solvency and liquidity risk reporting into a clear focus. So the discipline it implies is simple: show your work, do not only state intent. In terms of differentiators, the board can use the controls declaration expectations to accelerate systematization. So UK Corporate Governance Code 2024 and its guidance makes clear the emphasis on monitoring, reviewing, and declaring of the effectiveness of material controls, including reporting controls. This pushes management towards demonstrable operating maturity. And how you reduce the risk. The board can treat the cost of capital as the external clock. For example, the Bank of England explains its rate decisions and the direction of the bank rate. Even if rates fall gradually, capital remains priced unconditional. So that means that fragile models get punished first. So what feels like the best next step for you today if you are sitting in the boards? A debate about dilution, a debate about whether the refinancing was good, or a test of whether the model can hold? I will go for the third one, a test whether the model can hold or not. So one action that you can do today about this is ask management for a one-page post-press release plan outlining the 3 operational proofs that must improve over the next 2 quarters to genuinely reduce liquidity risk. And if that one pager turns into a narrative, probably you have your answer there. There is not a real plan. And on the other side, if you are in the executive team of the public company or limited company and your board is overseeing refinancing and integration, book a structured diagnosis session with your team to map the operational proofs lenders and markets will demand next and the control evidence needed to report to the board with confidence. So let's pause here today and reconvene tomorrow, because tomorrow I will show you why this kind of restructuring fails unless boards force a shift from hours for money delivery to product and system assets that lift revenue per employee. If this mirrors what you're seeing inside your organization, you'll probably want to stay with this series this week. And if advisory board design is something you are actively thinking about, let's have a chat. Connect with me through LinkedIn, or LinkedIn is the best way, and we'll have a chat, understand what is your position, what you're looking for, and how we can help you. Right, so have a great day.